Fabulous. So I'd like you to start by telling me about your creative process and how you used your creative practitioner to inform that process.
No worries. So when we found out that we was working for a duet with two dancers, I kind of almost knew that I wanted to choose character as the focal point for my piece rather than text or prop because I knew that I could build a direct relationship between the two dancers that I had. So when I knew that I was choosing character, I then started thinking about and researching the different practitioners that we'd looked at and which one of them could aid me in the story that I wanted to tell, as well as researching different classical stories that also already exist that I could build upon. Um, so I ended up choosing almost like a forbidden love kind of theme with it, almost like Romeo and Juliet, um, and choosing Laban. Um, so I researched videos on how Laban builds character in his own work, um, and watched videos on that on YouTube, which kind of explained about how he used different mannerisms of the time of the work that he was making for the characters and use that within the dance almost as small motifs throughout, just so that the audience can connect more with the characters individually as well as the relationship that he was trying to put across. So I used these and dotted them around the piece to put the story more. And by developing this, I did it through setting a task with the two dancers, such as what we've done in class. So working together and dancing around a shape and experimenting different movements around a shape, but then also connecting that with physical contact. Um, because I feel like physical contact was important in my piece, and I wanted every time this physical contact happened, I wanted it to be an important thing, so that the audience could capture that the two characters were trying to come together and build this contact. I used Laban's idea of dancing around a shape to almost show that it was restricted at some point. So there was lots of reaching in, at different levels and at different spaces, um, to show how they're trying to almost escape their different backgrounds to try and come together. Um,
Okay, that's great. So, if you're looking at this idea of characterization, and you mentioned you picked shapes from Laban and you picked gestures from Laban to create your characters, how else did you go about trying to show your characters through the process? Were there some bits that were really hard to show, and how did you overcome those?
yeah, so I knew that in the beginning I wanted to show the different mannerisms, the different types of ways that they would act, and trying to show that in the movement from giving them similar but still tweaking the movements a bit, to show that they weren't the same and they weren't always dancing in unison. Towards the end, it was a bit harder when they were starting to come together because um, there would be a lot of coming towards each other in the same way, a lot of more dramatic movement that was performed in unison. Um, and then to show that the characterization was still there, I still used different freeze frame, almost like pictures for the character that we could always go back to, um, just to remember what they was like, and also a development in the characterization that they're almost coming together as one by the end. Um, when they became closer together in the dance towards the end, or when they was running towards each other, and still showing the individualistic features that I hinted throughout the dance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's perfect. So if you're thinking about your relationship to your dancers, how did you approach this work? So you gave them some tasks. Did you do improvisation? Did you give them any set material? And which of those approaches worked best for your artistic ideas?
Yeah, so um, we did the task first of all to see how physical contact could work in a shape, because obviously those are two things that usually don't go towards each other well unless you're matching up in that shape. Um, and then so I let them do that on their own. Whilst they was doing that, I came up with my own few movement phrases just to see how they would look as running themes throughout the dance, and then came together, saw what they had, because I could look at what ideas they were developing, and so it meant I could get to know the shapes and movements that they're comfortable with, and the style that they would thrive in the choreography, to know that the dancers are comfortable. Um, and then that meant I could incorporate their strengths easier and more effectively as I got to know them better. And then combined with my ideas that I put up, I kind of altered and adjusted my ideas with what they came up with, um, just so the emotion that they could bring to the piece could also be reflected, because I could get to know what else they could bring to the dance rather than just the movement, such as the emotion.
Fabulous. So if there was one thing you could change about your piece, what would it be and why?
So probably the thing that I would change would be the motifs that I would develop. I would probably make different variations or adapt more onto the end of them throughout the dance, just to make sure that there is a build up and almost a climax of the dance rather than keeping the same movement phrase repeated. Um, I would also probably want to be more experimental with the movement, because in the dance, it's all of it is using a lyrical style mainly, and I feel like I would like to use different contemporary movements and more of a contemporary style to see how other styles could affect the end product of my piece. And that could mean I could explore my theme and my ideas and the narrative in an alternative way that I didn't look at before.
Super. And my very last question is, how do you feel your own creative process has changed throughout this? So, in essence, what is the one thing you would take away from the work and the way you made this work?
Um, I would take away. Um, sorry, can you just repeat it?
Of course, no problem at all. So, in essence, what through this you've learned a lot of things. What is the single most important thing that you've learned that you will take away about your own creative process?
Um, that the relationship between the two characters, if you choose character in a choreography, is what drives the piece. So I knew that whatever the dance was doing, the characters almost had to lead the dance, and their story had to lead the dance to become what I wanted it to be, if that makes sense. So their relationship between each other had to be the focal point alongside the movement to really get the audience, to really get the idea across to the audience of what I was trying to convey.
Fabulous. So essentially, it's the dramaturgy is really important in creating dance with characters, which is what you did. So that's fabulous. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, nothing else.